Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to sift through the sources, find some surprising facts, maybe shed some light on things that seem unexplained. Today, we're digging into some really perplexing mysteries, stuff from the internet, but also, from remote wildernesses. We're exploring how these unexpected clues can just surface. And sometimes they even crack open these really long-standing enigmas.
Yeah, it's always fascinating, isn't it? How information, whether it's put out there deliberately or just like accidentally captured, can suddenly become a key piece of a much bigger puzzle. I think our human drive, to understand what's hidden or forgotten, it often leads us to some pretty remarkable places.
Absolutely. So our deep dive today is going to unpack three distinct, kind of unsettling stories. First up, this is bizarre series of live streams. They popped up on what looked like a totally ordinary social media account. Then we're going to take a journey into a decades-old cold case, one that's shrouded in the mountains up in Norway. And finally, we'll look at the surprising, almost accidental role Google Street View has played in solving missing person cases that were, previously unsolvable. So what kind of unsettling truths might we uncover here? Let's get into it. Okay, so we're starting our dive not in some dusty old archive, but right there on TikTok. You're just scrolling and there's this business account. Seemed totally normal, selling things like portable washing machines and these monkey tissue dispensers. But then it started broadcasting something really unsettling. It left thousands of viewers just asking, what am I even looking at? Right, picture this. The account is called Kokenstore. Usually it's just full of these light-hearted product promos, seems to be based in Indonesia. But then over a few weeks, the live streams got different. Really different. You'd tune in and you'd see this man. He looked like he was trapped in some dark, confined space, and he was covered in this thick brown sludge. Looked like mud. He was often just curled up, a fetal position, or sometimes he was actively scooping this stuff all over himself, making sure he was totally coated. What made it genuinely unnerving, though, was his face. He looked so uncomfortable, scared even, and cold, like bone-chillingly cold, clutching himself, breathing really heavily. Some viewers even swore they could hear angry voices, like off-screen somewhere, ordering him to keep covering himself in the mud. And then the streams would just end abruptly, leaving thousands of people completely baffled and honestly pretty disturbed.
And what happened almost immediately, especially over on Reddit, was this wave of concern from people watching. On December 9th, 2022, a user called Ghoul Goddess posted about it. It was on the Internet Mystery subreddit. And that just sparked all these theories. A lot of people were genuinely worried. They were speculating, that maybe the guy wasn't in mud at all, but horribly in a septic tank with human waste. That's how bad it looked.
Ugh, that's a truly grim thought. But it really shows how quickly people online can jump to the absolute worst conclusion when there's no context, right?
Exactly. And thankfully, that particular very dark rumor, it was pretty thoroughly debunked. There's a YouTube channel, Scare Theater. They actually took on the task. Bravely watched actual septic tank videos, which, thanks for your service there.
Yeah.
And they determined pretty conclusively that the liquid in those Kokenstore streams was almost certainly mud. They pointed out the consistency, the color, how it moved. It just didn't match up with raw sewage.
Okay, so the substance itself wasn't quite as horrifying as people first feared. But that still leaves the big question. Why? Why would a gadget account selling washing machines suddenly post something so bizarre, so upsetting? Some people immediately thought, okay, viral marketing. Like you mentioned, that TV station in Mexico, Canal 5, they used to post really disturbing random videos on Twitter late at night just to get people talking, create buzz.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's actually highly likely these weren't even live streams, not in the way we usually think of them. You could see these little telltale signs like faint screen refresh lines, the kind you get when you film a monitor. And the audio was muffled, echoey, like someone recorded it through a phone mic. It strongly suggests it was just someone restreaming content, pointing their phone at a computer screen playing these videos. Which means Kokenstore probably had nothing to do with making the original videos. They were likely just using found footage, playing it, streaming that, hoping to draw attention, get followers, and, maybe sell more stuff or charge higher promotion fees.
Okay. So the method points towards a marketing stunt, using existing videos to try and go viral. Makes sense. But then What were those videos? Where did this footage of the mud-covered man actually come from?
And this brings us to a really crucial point about cultural context. It turns out there's this recent, pretty popular trend among some Indonesian influencers called mandi limpa, which translates literally to mud bath. These streamers, they cover themselves in mud, sometimes for hours, even days. They interact with viewers, ask for donations, and actually covering yourself in mud, it holds some significant cultural meaning in parts of Indonesia. There are traditional festivals where people do it symbolically, kind of washing off negative traits. So it's entirely possible, maybe even probable, that Kokenstore just found one of these mandi limpa videos online and repurposed it. They likely knew that to an outside audience, especially a Western one unfamiliar with the trend, it would just look incredibly creepy and mysterious. They could capitalize on that ambiguity.
But wait, the man in those Kokenstore clips, he looked genuinely scared. Miserable. He didn't look like he was part of some fun voluntary performance or ritual. How do we square that look of fear with this cultural trend?
That's a really good point, a perceptive observation, and that's where the nuance comes in. While many mandi limpa streams are voluntary, performative, if you watch enough of them, especially the really long ones, the endurance challenges, where influencers spend maybe 24 hours or more in a mud hole, their behavior near the end of those streams starts to look strikingly similar to the man in the Kokenstore videos. Think about it. Prolonged exposure to cold mud, even if you started willingly, it leads to hypothermia, exhaustion, you'd be shivering, curling up, breathing heavily, looking absolutely wretched. It becomes a real ordeal. So while we can't be 100% certain until the original unedited videos surface, it seems pretty likely the Kokenstore streams were just clips taken from one of these extreme mandi limpa endurance challenges. It's a powerful lesson, really, in digital literacy. What looks profoundly unsettling can lose its power, or at least change its meaning entirely once you understand the original context, and how easily that ambiguity can be twisted for clicks and profit.
Okay, so from those constructed anxieties of the digital world, the shift, let's move to a really haunting cold case, a real-world mystery. This one has baffled investigators for decades, and it might just be waiting for a lost piece of media, like a TV show, to finally give a name back to someone unidentified. We're talking about the enduring mystery of the teddy bear man. So September 12th, 1992, hunters are out in the Hardangervidda National Park in Norway, really remote, rugged terrain. And they stumble upon the remains of an unidentified person. The area is called Falknuten. It's exceptionally isolated. We're talking a several-hour hike just to get there from the nearest trail, deep in the mountains.
Yeah, the environment itself is just incredibly challenging. That's key here. The deceased, they estimated his age between 22 and 27, and based on the remains, he'd likely died at least a year earlier. Now, crucial detail, they found a Norwegian banknote in his pocket, and this particular note only went into circulation in September 1991, so that strongly suggested he went into the mountains shortly after September 91, which is exactly when the weather up there in Hardangervidda turns really severe. Harsh winds, temperatures dropping fast, not a good time to be unprepared.
Right. And the cause of death, they couldn't determine it definitively. But given the altitude, about 1,200 meters, and the time of year, the authorities believed he'd probably wandered off a hiking trail and just succumbed to the elements. Froze, most likely. His clothing suggested he was slim, but also definitely not an experienced hiker, not someone prepared for those kinds of treacherous conditions.
Yeah.
And then there were his belongings, multiple plastic bags, filled with items mostly from German brands. Rye bread, baking powder, small bottles of wine and water. Clothes made in Germany, including a poncho they traced back to maybe Hamburg or Munich, and weirdly, a road map of South Norway bought in Oslo. Not a hiking map, though, so pretty useless for navigating that kind of terrain. Detectives even thought the ground looked trampled, maybe like he'd use the map as a seat to rest or get off the cold ground.
Which raises that immediate pivotal question. Why no backpack?
Right.
Where was it? Some investigators guess maybe a large animal dragged it off. Others thought its absence was actually a huge clue, pointing towards maybe a naive tourist who just severely underestimated how brutal that park can be, went in totally unprepared. That lack of proper gear, combined with the useless map, it really suggests a serious misjudgment.
And then,
Whoa.
the most poignant detail. The teddy bear. It was found with him. It was clearly old, looked well-loved. It had even been repaired multiple times.
Yeah.
Obviously a deeply personal treasure. Now that detail adds this profound layer of human mystery. Why would an adult man bring a teddy bear on a dangerous mountain hike? It doesn't fit the picture of a typical lost tourist, does it?
Yeah. No, it really doesn't. And investigators grappled with that a lot. It suggested such a deep personal connection. It made this anonymous victim feel incredibly real, incredibly human. Some, heartbreakingly wondered if it was a comfort item, maybe for someone planning to end their life, a final piece of familiarity. Or perhaps it was a memento, connecting him to someone he left behind. A last touchstone to a life that ended so tragically, so anonymously up there. That teddy bear, it really transformed the case from just a statistic into this deeply personal, unresolved tragedy.
And the strongest lead in this whole 30-year-old mystery, the one that offers maybe a glimmer of hope, it only emerged recently, in 2022. After the case was talked about quite a bit on a Norwegian TV show, a German national contacted them. They remembered watching a German talk show back in 1998. It was called Fleek, hosted by Arabella Kiesbauer. And they believe a woman on that show, a guest, talked about her son, who had gone missing while he was on holiday in Norway. And the last time she heard from him was in 1991, which aligns perfectly with the teddy bear man's estimated time of death. Other people, callers and internet users seem to back up this memory, this powerful but really elusive memory.
And this brings us right to the significance of what we call lost media. Any content, a TV episode, a photo, a video that was once out there but has just vanished, become impossible to find. The single episode of Fleek, if someone could just find it, it could provide the breakthrough, identify the teddy bear man, finally bring closure to a family that's waited decades for answers. But despite authorities putting this tip out there, asking the public for help, that episode has never been found. The host doesn't remember it. The TV network says they have no records. Maybe it was deleted. Maybe the tipster got the show wrong. We don't know. But the lead itself fits so perfectly with the theory that he was a German national on holiday in Norway. Finding that specific episode could finally give him his name back, bring peace to his family. It really highlights how surprisingly fragile our archives can be, both digital and analog, where just one missing piece can hold the key to a decades-old human story.
Yeah, the teddy bear man really reminds us how desperately we search for those missing pieces. Okay, so now let's pivot. Let's talk about something we pretty much all have access to. A tool that wasn't designed for detective work at all, but has unintentionally become this really powerful asset in solving real-world mysteries. We're talking about Google Street View and Google Maps. Beyond the funny glitches you can find, or the weird stage poses like horror movie casts standing in the road, or those bizarre pigeon-headed people you sometimes see, Google's camera cars have accidentally captured some truly haunting and sometimes incredibly revealing things on their trips around the world.
It's truly compelling, isn't it? How these tools we use every day, mostly just for navigation, can suddenly become pivotal in cold cases. They weren't built to be detective agencies or, archives for human tragedies, yet they've delivered these remarkable, almost unbelievable breakthroughs purely through, the chance of data collection.
Right. Take this incredible example. It's almost like something out of a movie. In August 2019, someone found an image on Google Maps. It showed a submerged car right at the bottom of a pond in Wellington, Florida. A local resident just found it by chance, zooming in on the map on their computer. So they retrieved the vehicle, and inside, detectives found the remains of William Malt. He was a man who'd been missing from Lantana since way back in November 1997. He called his girlfriend around 9:30 that night, said he was on his way home from a night out, but he just never arrived.
And what's just astounding about this, that car, sitting there at the bottom of the pond. It had been visibly present on Google Earth satellite photos since 2007. For 12 years, it was right there. Anyone could have potentially seen it. But nobody noticed until 2019. It's presumed he just lost control of his car that night, maybe disoriented, tired, whatever, and accidentally drove into the pond. A tragic accident, solved 22 years later. Not by traditional detective work, but by a digital snapshot and a curious local just looking at a map. It's a stark reminder, isn't it, of what might be hidden right there in plain sight, captured by algorithms, just waiting for human eyes to make that connection.
Wow. Okay, then there's this other image. This one's more mysterious and continues to kind of haunt people who see it. It shows a woman, she's wearing a dress, heeled boots, and she's walking along the side of a road pulling a suitcase. But she's in the middle of the vast, empty New Mexico desert. I mean, this isn't just rural, it's properly remote. The closest town is Roswell, and that's like a 9.5-hour walk behind her. There's absolutely nothing else for miles in any other direction. She was presumably dropped off there, but why? Why leave her there, alone, with a suitcase? And where on earth could she possibly be going? This one just remains this really unsettling enigma, a single frame capturing a situation that makes absolutely no sense. And finally, there's this image. At first glance, it looks pretty innocuous, but it actually played this absolute pivotal role in solving another missing person's case. On November 2nd, 2020, an 83-year-old woman who had Alzheimer's disappeared from her home in Belgium. There was a massive search effort. 50 officers, sniffer dogs, even a helicopter with thermal imaging. But nothing. They found no trace of her. 2 agonizing years go by. And then one of the investigators, apparently just on a hunch,
a sort of desperate last resort, decided to check her house on Google Street View, just hoping for maybe some forgotten detail, anything.
And what's truly astonishing here, almost beyond belief, the Google car had driven past her house not only on the day she went missing, but at the precise moment she wandered out of her home. The Street View image captured her final known steps, just walking slowly towards her neighbor's house. It was this disturbing, completely accidental, yet perfectly timed digital record.
Wow. And this new lead, this single image, it allowed them to conduct a second, much more targeted search, following her assumed path right from that snapshot. And just like that, her body was discovered. It was in a heavily forested area, right near her neighbor's garden, an area that was so overgrown and dense during the first search that even the trained sniffer dogs couldn't get into it properly. She had likely died after a fall, just a short distance from where that Google car captured her last moments.
It's such a sobering thought, isn't it? Almost surreal. Without that accidental, perfectly timed Google Street View capture, that case might still be unsolved today. Her family might never have gotten closure. It really underscores how the mundane mapping of our world can inadvertently reveal these profound truths about missing people. It turns a simple navigation tool into this unlikely, powerful, investigative partner.
So after all that, what does this all mean for us? We've journeyed through some pretty strange corners of social media, right? We've pondered a decades-old cold case that's desperately waiting for, well, basically a missing piece of television history. And we've seen how the everyday mapping of our world can, just by accident, reveal these profound truths about people who vanished.
It really highlights this fascinating interplay, doesn't it? Between our own human curiosity, the sheer vastness of digital information out there now, and just the enduring nature of these unresolved mysteries. Knowledge, when you pursue it meticulously, piece it together carefully, it can bring clarity, even to the most ambiguous, most haunting situations. And sometimes, from the most unexpected sources.
Indeed. It really makes you wonder how many other active mysteries or, lost pieces of information are out there right now, waiting to be found in plain sight. Maybe on a platform like Google Street View, maybe hidden in some forgotten archive somewhere, just waiting for someone, maybe someone like you listening right now, to stumble upon them and make that crucial connection. We really hope this deep dive into the unsettling and the unexplained has given you some surprising facts, maybe some new insights to ponder. And if you found these stories captivating, please make sure to like this, share it, and subscribe to our channel, Horror Docx. We do more deep dives into these kinds of mysteries that linger. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and definitely keep that curiosity alive.